Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women's Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a super special episode of the Stitch Please podcast. As you know, all of the episodes are special, and today's is especially so. I am so glad to bring together this Juneteenth month-long celebration of creative liberation and creating liberation with Jasika Nicole. Now, let me ask you something. Y'all, have you ever met anybody besides me who was good at everything? Well, now is your chance to meet another person besides myself who is good at everything, because we are talking with Jasika Nicole, who has managed to not only have an acting career starting from a very young age, she also paints, sews, makes shoes. She does pottery. She is a fierce advocate for liberation and justice. And she was like on my list of dream episode guests. I wrote it in my journal that in 2021 that I would talk to her, and she was doing an interview with something. She was talking about her new show, the Punky Brewster reboot, right? That she is in this new show. And I was like, hey, that's really exciting. But let me ask you something. Can I ask you something? You come on my podcast real quick? And she was like, okay. And I was like, ah. So very exciting. Welcome, Jasika. We are so glad to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here. Can I just say a few words? Number one, I do not play sports. So when people say, what can't you do? There's lots of things I can't do, but playing sports is like a big one. Don't throw a ball at me. Do not throw a ball at me. And secondly, I just want everybody to know that on the list of things that I can do, one of them apparently is cut my hair, and I cut my own bangs last week, and each day has been a new journey into what is happening today. So I just went with it because I didn't realize we were going to be recording this for Patreon, which is totally cool.
It looks good.
But like I had a Farrah Fawcett just about 10 minutes ago, and had a whole like zip code of bang on this head, and now I'm sharing it with all of your lovely supporters and listeners. So
well,
very happy.
And this is why, if you are not a Patreon supporter, why are you not? It's only $2 for a whole month. If it breaks down, you all know I'm not good at math. It's like pennies a day. And as you know, what I am offering is worth way more than $2 a month. And to see Jasika's bangs, something that you are going to wish you had eyes on. So I'm just saying, there's some real life FOMO happening right now that you are being brought through. So if you want to see for yourself, I think she did a good job. You know, that's what happens when you're a free person with free hair. Your hair's like,
it's true.
I don't want to go that way. I want to.
It's true. It's so true. And I do love the bangs. This is the first time that I've worn them straight. And so I just have like a real Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell thing happening. And I just didn't expect it. Really, truly, each morning is just a delightful entrance into the world of having hair on your forehead.
I respect that. And I celebrate.
Thank you.
I respect and celebrate. I really do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I feel seen. Thank you.
And so one of the reasons I wanted to invite you to the program, especially for June and for Juneteenth, is because I've been thinking a lot about creative liberation. I've been thinking a lot about what does it mean for Black women to seize up, to take up the mantle, to find ways to free ourselves. And how that's something that gets renewed every single day. And I tend to think about this as a practice. And so I'm thinking about the practice of creative liberation. And I think you do that so beautifully in so many aspects that I have seen, at least from your from your work in general. And I just think that you're such a wonderful person to talk to about this. Let me ask you, does the phrase creative liberation mean anything to you? Do you have, if you were to describe your own process as creative liberation, is there anything you could like point to in your own work that reflects that idea?
I would say that it means everything to me. And I think that my understanding of what creative liberation looks like is constantly expanding. I think it means something different to me than it did a year ago, and a year before that, and 5 years before that. I have found so much power and even solace, I would say, in being able to be at the helm of what I bring into the world.
Mm.
So, as somebody who is an actor, I'm a professional actor and I have worked in television and film for decades at this point. And I think that, most people think of the performing arts as a form of artistry. The
Of course.
actors are artists no
Yes.
matter where they're acting. But I will tell you that television and film really destroys the creative process of an actor in ways that I was not prepared for until I was kind of thrust into the environment of a production.
Yes.
And I understand it. I get it. Television and film, it's different than stage. You are but a cog in a very large wheel, a piece of machine that you can't see all the ways that it's working together because a lot of it isn't in front of your face. So
Yes.
as a television and film actor, unless you're producing or unless you're like a huge star, you're showing up to do your job. You're showing up to do your work, and then you are leaving. And as much as I appreciate so many aspects of my career, I have to tell you that I have never felt incredibly fulfilled artistically in the work that I do, unless I'm creating something with my friends.
Yes.
Independent cinema is a really great outlet for just making up what you want and having a good
Yes.
time. But in terms of like network and big production television and stuff, it's just not there. And
Mhm.
so over the years, I think that my other creative muscles have grown and gotten so much stronger because I do still need that outlet. I don't like showing up to work every day, saying these exact lines, having ideas, having opinions that nobody's interested in hearing, or
Right.
in bringing into the actual work that we're doing. And again, I understand that television is a massive thing to produce, but that doesn't mean that, my creativity shouldn't have any space to go. And so I think that because of that, over the years, my own interest in being my own boss, in not having to collaborate with anybody but myself, and
That's
me
right.
saying, it's finished or it's not finished. Keep on working on it. You can
Right.
do better, whatever
That's
it
right.
is. It's so empowering to be able to envision in your own head and bring it out into the world for the good of no one else but you. Like, the stuff that I make and create, yes, I love to sew clothes and I do love to share it on Instagram, but I would still be doing it if social media didn't exist. It
Yes. Yes.
fulfills something deep inside of me that
Yes.
is really important. So that freedom, I think, that liberation that comes with what you create has been kind of like an opposing force in the actual career that I have. And honestly, it really balances it out. Like, I don't think that I could do either of the things that I do, like the work that I do or have the hobbies that I do, if the other, point wasn't there to kind of balance it out.
Yes.
And in addition to that, that's like one part of creative liberation. But I think that as a Black woman specifically, I just grew up thinking that there was only a handful of ways to be Black,
Mm.
because that is what media showed us. They showed us one type of person on TV, and we read about one supporting kind of person in books, and we read
Yes.
about this kind of Black person in movies. And we all knew that we were so much more expansive than that. And
Mhm.
so now as an adult, I feel like I'm able to just live how I want and not try and fit anybody else's idea or narrative of what it is to be a Black woman.
Yes.
Um, sometimes fitting into these stereotypes that have been existing for long before I've been born. Like, I have been an angry Black woman before, and I will continue to be an angry Black woman, but I am not always an angry.
And because Black people, you all have things in this country to be angry about. If you have never, I don't know, read a history book, or I don't know, watched anything anywhere. Like, yes, this idea that somehow our anger is unusual and extreme and out of proportion, like racism.
Yes.
That's just racist.
Everything that you've said, all of that is true. We can be all these, like, we can have all these commonalities in being Black, and we can also like spread out beyond them. And I just I think a lot about growing up, and I lived in a mostly white neighborhood, went to a mostly white school. And, everybody that I went to school with were like, you talk so white, or what, you don't seem Black, whatever it is. I really had to like grow up and unpack that stuff and be like, no, you don't get to tell me how to define my Blackness, and what it is that makes me who I am, and the ways in which I do connect to my community, and the ways in which I'm like, man, we all have jokes where we're like, they took my Black card away for that one. I sure did go to that White Snake concert. Like, whatever it is, that is the beauty of Black culture, is that it is so vast, and you can't put it into one.
And it's elastic.
It absolutely, it is ever changing. It is much like humans in general, and language. Like, it is something that is constantly evolving. We are never static. And that is something that is so exciting about, I would venture to say, communities of color across the board. Like, there's a magic in being able to exist with a group of people, and also kind of shine outside of that group of people too.
Yes.
And I guess the liberation that I feel is giving myself permission to explore all the different parts of who I am, and not feel like it needs to settle into some nicely packaged idea of what a woman is supposed to be, or a queer person is supposed to be, or a Black woman, like whatever it is.
There's much beauty and truth in what you just said, but what you've made me realize is that Hollywood, though there's a lot of romance built up around the idea of Hollywood and the Hollywood industry, it's an institution. And institutions are not designed to protect people. Institutions are designed to protect themselves. Yes. And so in the same way that, anyone else who might have to go to a corporate job, or to a job at a school or a university or at a grocery store or whatever, there are systems in place that are very rigid and very difficult to change. And so that was something that I was really struck by, and that even though we might think, oh my gosh, this is so glamorous, to do this work and to meet these new people and to kind of create something that's so beautiful and permanent, or seems permanent, because we're watching it on television, but there's also a lot of precarity in that as well. In addition to, sometimes you have to eat shit. It feels that way. Right. And so I was thinking about an article that I read from the New York Times back in, I think it was maybe back in 2017 or 2010, and you were quoted in it. It was about being queer and out in Hollywood, and how that was challenging. And it was recent. I couldn't believe that this was a conversation that would happen in Hollywood, that you could be I guess I wouldn't say the word like banned or anything, but you could face negative consequences, like casting directors don't want to hire Black folks, or this person doesn't want to put you up if everyone knows that you are a lesbian or a queer person, like you might miss this role. And it's just, it feels to me like that Hollywood seems to have, and has always had, like tons and tons and tons of queer people and gay people in there. And I'm like, why is this somehow this way? It feels, of all the industries and of all the institutions that would be more forward thinking and progressive, it would be Hollywood. You would think. It's not, but it's just not. But it's not. Like, how it's racist. It's really racist, even though they're making products racist, misogynist, transphobic, homophobic. And it's just incredible, because like there might be some beautiful products that emerge from that, that's like, oh wow, this is really great and forward thinking and amazing. But then I guess there's a huge story of struggle about how that even was allowed to get produced, so have you found any type of, in your time in the industry, has that changed or relaxed in any way that since people are talking about it, or is it pretty much consistent that this has been a challenge for different, that this feels challenging for different folks who might be marginalized in a variety of ways?
Well, one thing that I've learned in my career is that I can't ever look for any institution for freedom that doesn't have people like me at the helm, at the charge of it. So until, there are people of color and there are women of color and there are queer people and disabled people and trans people who are making the decisions, and I don't mean a writer's assistant in the writer's room. I'm talking about people, not the PAs, the actual people who are making the decisions of what audiences are going to see, what these networks are going to pour their money into. Until those people are representative of our community at large, it's not going to happen. And that isn't to say that this work isn't important or significant,
Of course.
because I know that it is, because it would have been important and significant to me as a kid to see somebody that looked like me on
Yes,
television.
yes.
Or any Black woman who isn't getting arrested, or who isn't trying to raise a family on her own because her husband has been incarcerated. And I'm not saying that those stories don't deserve space, because they absolutely do. Like, that's all a part of our experience. But again, it's this narrow scope of it where we're
Very
not
narrow scope.
expanding
Yes,
beyond that.
yes.
And so it is difficult for me to say that things have changed significantly. Of course, somebody who looks like me 30 years ago can probably say, yes, things have gotten a lot better. But I think it's going to take generations to really see and feel the impact of what is changing. And for me, I've been an actor in television and film for close to 20 years, like 15, 20 years, something like that. And this role on Punky Brewster is the very first time I have ever played a queer character. I have been out my whole career. I have never been secretive about, my sexuality or my relationship. I've been with my partner for almost 15 years. They've been at every, major red carpet function that I've been to in my career, because we kind of met each other at the point where my career started to take off. So I have always been amazed that people weren't interested in actually putting one of the tiny handful of actual out queer Black actors in Hollywood in stuff. Like, it boggles my mind, and I cannot comprehend it. Now, that is not to say, when we say diversity, I think white people think we want to see a couple of brown skins, not too dark.
Not that light browns. Let's get some
light brown, cream.
Light brown.
Let's make it coffee colored caramel. Okay, because that's
a
comfortable.
little more milk in there. A little more milk.
Absolutely, just a little bit. Let's not scare the audience away. Okay.
It's like, oh wait, she black.
Right. Oh, no. No, we leave that only for Zoe Saldana.
Oh my God.
She doesn't actually identify as Black. So that's not how people who are actually a part of a marginalized community think of diversity. We think of diversity of thought, diversity of skin color and gender and ability. Like, I feel like we have such a broader idea of what diversifying a project actually really and truly looks like. Yes. And man, I really lost my train of thought. I had something very good to say too.
We're going to come back to it. I believe it. Because what you've identified is what Patricia Hill Collins, who's a Black feminist theorist, has described as controlling images. And these are these very narrow things that Black women or other marginalized folks get shunted into, right? So you get an overrepresentation of these controlling images, and then anything that doesn't fit that is not seen as authentic. So it becomes really dangerous when that happens. It really does. And I just think that diversity has become a word that I hate. It really has, just because of the ways it has been, I think, drained by industries of what it really means. There are some industries who don't want to change, and yet they can prop up diversity by keeping the same old structure they've always had, and then just throwing some marginalized people in it. And that doesn't change anything, but it makes them feel better. And the reason I think that what you're describing happens so often is because there are folks who care more about being called a racist than they do about doing racist shit.
Doing actual racist stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like being like, they feel like, targeted or exposed or whatever. But when it comes down to like the actual diversity, and because there's so much diversity and beauty within Blackness, like within Black families, there is diversity within the actual family, because everybody has different thoughts or different approaches. And, this person really, really hates bananas. And this person, like there's all sorts of differences. It just becomes, I think, so watered down that it's become, I think, not as useful. And especially when things get weaponized as an excuse for tokenism. And when you have folks who don't know the difference between diversity and tokenism, then, and then they're the ones that are in charge,
Absolutely. I remember my train of thought. Thank you very much, because you helped me find it. It was this idea that diversity, is tokenism, that you just stick a couple of people in there, or you write a couple of gay characters and that's it. And my idea of diversity is actually to have a beautiful script, well-written script, great characters for everybody, okay? And then you bring in this cast of people that can play all these roles. Like, I'm not saying that a queer person has to play every single role that's written for a queer person. Give them a straight role. Yes. Give the queer person the straight role, and give the straight person the queer role. But give everybody the opportunities. Show me a disabled actor who isn't necessarily playing a disabled character. You can also show me a disabled actor who is playing a disabled character, but like, think outside of this narrative that we are only our experience. That isn't what we want to do. I think we want to feel like we're having this collaborative process with each other and trying to find like the nuances of how to tell this story in a way that feels both universal, where it feels like relatable, and also very truthful and honest to who each individual person is and what they're going through. And that's what I feel like Hollywood is lacking all the time, because their main focus is making money, and they have decided what it is they think that viewers want to see. Like, at this point, I don't even know who they're listening to anymore, because all my people are like, I want to see this kind of show and this kind of show and this kind of show. And yet we're just getting the same stuff all the time. So is it that, they think that they are giving the audience what they want to see, or are they actually trying to basically tell us what it is that we want to see and spend all the money on the things that they want us to see, and not put as much money into the other stuff that we might want to see? So that we're like, well, the indie film circuit isn't very good. Like, I'll go see that blockbuster movie starring the exact same actors that I've been seeing for the past 15 years. Like, it's this big ball of gunk, and it's so hard to pick it all the way apart because there's so many pieces to it. But also, to what you were saying earlier about like, we would expect for Hollywood to be this kind of beacon of progression and thoughtfulness and moving forward. If you really think about the history of Hollywood, they were spending so much money to make sure that nobody knew that such and such was gay, that such and such was in a relationship with this person, that such and such had a damn eating disorder that they basically like helped create for them because they wanted them to be so thin. You know what I mean? Like, historically, Hollywood has never been on the right side
that's
of history.
So true. It's like, even when you think about film theory, the first film was racist propaganda. Like, the Thomas Dixon Klansman was based on, like that Birth of a Nation was based on Thomas Dixon's The Klansman, which is a heroic story of the Klan being heroes. And this film was screened at the White House. When you think about things like, Gone with the Wind and that racist propaganda, and how it becomes this cinematic glory, blah, blah, blah. All of that's incredibly racist. Like, it is white supremacist propaganda. And so I don't know why I would look to that for liberation. And this is why I think it's so important that when you have the opportunity to create your own space and to have your own creative outlet, when your vocation, the job that you do for money is very restrictive,
Mhm.
you know, even though you get to express yourself, of course, but
Mhm.
there's so many limitations. When you have your own space, I think that what you have done with it and your platform is staggering. And it is such a wonderful example, again, of creative liberation. Because what you have done is you have created a space that allows you to you set the parameters, and you're setting them in a way that is really free, you know, and free for you to be free and to be safe. And
Mhm.
that's something that I really absolutely admire that. I admire that on your profile at the top, it says no unsolicited advice. I love that. So when someone's like, "Ooh, oh, look, she cute. She got some nice outfit. Huh, no unsolicited advice. Okay. Tell us a bit more about how that came to be and why you find that important."
Okay. So, joining the online sewing community several years ago, it was a huge deal for me, because I think that I am most articulate when I'm writing. So, any kind of online spaces, it's always like it's how I met my partner. It's how I met so many of my friends through social media over the years. I'm talking about back in the day, like when I first moved to New York in 2003, and I would make friends on Craigslist because it was so long ago that it wasn't dangerous. Like
Right. That's right.
nobody,
Nobody was
right?
like using it for true crime. Girl, when you
Yes, it's
that
so
was
true.
it was just like you could actually meet a person who doesn't not want to chop you up and put you in a pie. You can meet
I
people who wanted
know.
to hang out and do things.
I know, and I feel so lucky. It was a small pocket of time. It was like a couple of years where really the only people who knew how to use Craigslist were kind of, I want to say, tech savvy, tended to be on the younger side, like right out of college, familiar
Yes.
with Friendster and stuff like that. And so that's just online is just always how I've looked for and found community. Also as an introvert, because hanging out in person is just a lot, but I'll text you all night long, girl. So finding the online sewing community, specifically like through Instagram and through sewing blogs, was just a really big deal for me. We had just moved from Vancouver, where we had lived for 4 years, on this show that wasn't like a great show to be a part of, and really, without going too far into it, it was a little bit. I don't think that people give enough credit for kind of like having healthy relationships with more abstract things, because we think of abusive relationships with other people, but we can have abusive relationships with work,
Oh,
with all sorts of things,
yes,
right?
yes.
So that was an abusive relationship in my life. So
Oh,
coming out of it was really scary. I was, all the things that you feel when you get out of a bad relationship, feeling insecure, not really understanding your value, not knowing what's next. So
yes.
I was kind of coming off of that when we moved from Vancouver to LA. And so finding this online sewing community just was really, really important to me. And as I started to gain more followers and share more of what I was working on, I had an uptick in people writing to tell me about myself or what I had made. And I think that most makers and sewists and artists are at least a little bit familiar with the very common practice of people who you don't know or people you do know reaching out to tell you that they don't like that color on you, or that you should have done it this way, or that that pattern actually doesn't work with those shoes. And it was such a sucker of joy. Like, if
Mm,
I'm proud that I made something, there shouldn't be anything to keep me from feeling proud. Like, I'm just sharing it. I'm basking in my own glory. It doesn't have to be your glory, it doesn't have to be anybody else's
it
glory.
has nothing to do with them.
It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. And so I got to a place where I was like, all right, this is making me not enjoy social media. And I really enjoy social media. And I want to make it a safe space for me where I feel like I can come and be myself. And that doesn't mean everybody has to like me, because I don't like everybody. So I don't assume everybody's going to like me. But I should be able to have the space to create a world in which my needs are being met and nobody is forced to be there, but I have a right to say, this is what I need from you, and you can either give me what I need or move on your own way.
Exactly.
And really, essentially, it is all about boundaries. I try to be very open with how I want people to interact with me on Instagram, because if I don't, it's not worth me staying. I don't want to be on there because people expect me to, or because it's the thing you're supposed to do. And it's really funny I'm saying this, because I have a Twitter and I hate Twitter, and I'm only on Twitter because, like, as an actor, you're supposed to have a Twitter so that you can, share what you're doing. So I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite right now by saying, you should do it.
Twitter's for work. And Instagram is for your spirit. Yeah, Twitter is for work, and Instagram is for your spirit. If they don't,
that is so succinct. I love that. You're absolutely right. Yes, Instagram is so happy for me. Not all the time. I occasionally have some stuff that goes on, but for the most part, I would say it is just good and fun and awesome. And so I started to share what it was that I did not like about unsolicited advice. And when you give somebody unsolicited advice, you are making so many assumptions. You're, one, assuming that they want your advice. Two, you're assuming that they haven't already tried the thing that you're suggesting. And three, I can't remember what the third one is. The first two are really important.
The third one is you're assuming that you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you. That's the other one. Because I promise you, if most of the unsolicited advice that we got was good, I don't think that most people would have a problem with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not. 99% of the time, I already tried, it didn't work, or I know it's not going to work, or that's not the thing that I want to do. And I think that the other part that gets missing out of this is that a lot of makers, not all of them, some makers love unsolicited advice, and that's okay. You don't have to not like it. It's helpful to be clear about what it is that you want and don't want.
That's right.
Man, I really need like a notepad, because I feel like I have so many ideas to say and I'm not writing them down, and then I'm forgetting about them like in the middle of me talking. Okay, you say something. I'm going to try and see if it comes
you
back.
think of it, and you can go get a notebook. I'm sure you have one in the sewing room.
I do. We do.
I was thinking that this idea of unsolicited advice, you know what it reminds me of when you're talking about it and the way that it makes you feel? It's almost like it's like street harassment of the internet, right? We know, for example,
Yes.
when you're walking down the street, how often have I been able to say, you know what? Some raggedy man rolled up on me in Kroger today and gave me some really excellent advice. Like,
never.
He made me feel really good about myself when he was like, hey, shawty.
Right.
Can I holler at you? Like, you know what I mean? Ooh, you looking good, Slim. You looking good. Like what? Some people who do street harassment don't call it street harassment. They think it's a compliment.
Yep.
In the same way that people who send you unsolicited notes think that they're teaching you something you don't know already.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot about power relationships, I think, and it's different if you're in community with someone. If you're in community with a group of friends, of course you want to know what they're saying. But there's a lot of people on the internet. And there's a lot of people who follow you on Instagram. And if all of them were just rolling in to say, you know what, you might want to try a little bit of a warmer color, because I'm not sure I like how this is working out on, I don't know. Have you thought of that? Have you asked any other strangers? Yeah, when you break it down, it really does make it clear how there's a way to be in community with people.
There absolutely is. And I so appreciate you saying, like, I have friends and they'll tell me shit all the time. Exactly. And we laugh. You know what I mean? Like, there is a difference from getting, like, some ideas from somebody that's like your homegirl or whatever, right, or my partner Claire, who has a lot of ideas. all the time,
You're
which is
probably
totally
full up on
fine.
ideas
Full up on ideas.
between their
Right.
ideas and your
Yes.
ideas. Y'all got a house full of ideas.
Absolutely. And then the other part of it is that, again, not all makers feel this way, but I am somebody who just relishes in the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of it. Like there have been things, and I was like, this took me 2 weeks to do, and I cannot believe it took me so long, and I was so sick of this project. But when it's done, I'm just thrilled. I don't want somebody to try and hand me all the answers. I love figuring that stuff out for myself. I love troubleshooting. I love doing something wrong and learning that that's why you don't do it that way. You know, there's lots of tutorials and they're like, don't do this. And they don't always tell you why you don't do that. I love figuring out why, because there's extra space in there. Like sometimes you figure out why and you know, all right, I'm not going to do that again. Sometimes you figure out why and something that you actually can do that's a shortcut or something, whatever it is, it becomes you being the boss of what this journey is going to look like. And I love that.
Hey, friends. Hey, I know you're enjoying the audio version of Stitch Please, and thanks so much for listening. But you're missing out on all the great stuff going on behind the scenes. That's why I'm inviting you to join our Black Women Stitch Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can see all the video versions of the podcast. Plus, you get some amazing swatch cards. You know how much I love these swatch cards. Look, see how cool these are? Oh wait, you can't see them because you are not yet on the Patreon. So when you join the Patreon, you'll be able to see this, me showing you these amazing cards. We also have some great perks at the other tiers, like discounts, swag, office hours, and more. Don't be the last sewist in the group now. Head over to patreon.com/blackwomenstitch or click the link in the show notes and become a Patreon supporter today. We truly cannot do this without you. So thank you so much.
And the other thing, and this is kind of like bigger than the maker community, I would say, but just because somebody has a problem, that is not an invitation for other people to solve it. Now, a lot of times I'll say, man, I'm having some real tough times with this one thing that I'm trying to figure out. It's a problem that needs to be solved, but I'm not sharing that because I want you to fix it. And if we think about it beyond the scape of making and we say, man, I'm just really so frustrated with my mom and I can't get her to understand where I'm coming from and blah, blah, blah. And you just want to share this with somebody.
Yes.
And their first reaction is, well, here's what you need to do. You need to blah, blah, blah. And now I also understand that that goes two ways because not everybody wants somebody to come over and vent for a full hour about every single thing that's going on in their life. So,
Right.
you know, I think that's two-sided, that people should be able to say, hey, I'm going through some stuff. Do you have the energy for me to share it with you and just listen to it? Or, hey, I'm going through some stuff. I would love to hear your ideas, if you have any, on how I can fix it. You know, it's honestly, it's taking away the expectations that you have for each other and being very clear and communicative from the very beginning. Right. That's all it takes. So that's why I have the no unsolicited advice. I want y'all to know this from the beginning that I am not interested in it. And it's exhausting. It is exhausting because a lot of people feel very defensive when you tell them that you don't want. I have been cussed out so many times for saying, I know your intentions are good, but I don't want unsolicited advice. Well, you didn't have to say it so mean and you didn't have to. And I'm like, all right.
You didn't have to not. I figured since you have Instagram, I figured you knew how to read. And if you read the profile, it says no unsolicited advice. You know what? And also, there's no good way to tell somebody something who is committed to misunderstanding.
You are absolutely right. And that's what I've had to learn also. Just know when the conversation is over. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I do not have the time. I'm trying to get you to respect my boundaries. And if you can't do that, then you don't need to be following me. And that's the end of it. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic thing. But I will say that even though I get regularly very defensive, upset people at my no unsolicited advice thing, I get way more people that write me and say, I have not had examples of how to set boundaries in my life because my parents don't respect them or because my partner doesn't, whatever it is.
Right.
And I am learning how to ask for what it is that I need. That's bigger than sewing. That's bigger than that's bigger than a DM on Instagram. That is literally creating a world that feels safe for you.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
can ask somebody to respect your boundaries and they might not do it. And then you have the decision or the choice to maintain a relationship with them or whatever.
Exactly. And they have shown you who they are. You have valuable information from that because that shows them more about them than it ever
Yep.
does about you,
Yep.
you know? And that's one of the things I really admire about you being so forthright and transparent and upfront, right? Because if the Instagram and the social media space is a space of joy and play and recreation for you, you cannot constantly be, you know, defending and push, you know what I mean? You can't, you have to find a way to curate it in a
Mhm.
way that
Mhm.
works for you. And you
Mhm.
also have a very specific set of values and principles that you believe in and
Mhm.
that reflect in the way you maintain your life and your social media space. And
Mhm.
that is something also that is worthy of respect and defense. And that it's a space that you have created to be free. And that's one of the things that I think is so successful about it. And that I think that me and many other people admire as well. Because in teaching people how to treat you, in this space, you're helping other people learn how to erect those same things in their own lives, right? And I
Mhm.
think that often when you find somebody that has boundary issues, it's just as you said, they don't have boundaries themselves and they don't believe anybody else should have them, right? They don't
Yep.
respect their own boundaries, right? They don't even have them,
Yes.
right? And so when you run up against somebody who has one, it's like, wait a minute, that's not right. You're supposed to say yes to everybody for everything and always be
Yeah.
on call and always
Yes.
be tired and exhausted and weary and confused and angry and uncertain. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, and I don't think that it is an accident that it is happening in a realm of, I would say, mostly women follow me. That's the majority of the
yes,
people who are
yep,
following me. And having boundaries and sharing them with other people and demanding that they be respected and acknowledged, that is just not something I would say that is generally taught to women in this particular culture.
I agree.
We are taught to appease people, to take care of everything, and honestly we are taught to problem solve. Like, I feel like
Yes,
it is how do I say it? There's this culture of assuming that women will come in and fix everything that needs to be fixed, and that they kind of do it behind the scenes and you don't even recognize that they're doing it. So this jump, this like intuition that people have, that women specifically have in my DMs, to like show me how to fix something, I have to keep reminding myself that, like, this is something that they have been taught. I was taught it too.
right.
I have
Exactly.
also been like an active problem solver and can't listen to anybody. I got to figure out how to make the hurt or the pain or the whatever go
Yes,
away.
I want to
And
fix
it
it. I
is
fix it.
I just want to fix it. Yes. And so it is a real intentional unlearning that I think that women have to do, specifically to both recognize that it is totally acceptable for them to set boundaries with the people in their life that they love, and with strangers alike. That is absolutely okay. And that it is not okay for you to say, this is what I want, and somebody to say, no, that is not okay. And we think that it is. I think what you said, you spoke to earlier about normalizing it. I do think that our no's are it is normal to be like, but, and keep asking, or ask it in another way, or keep pushing it.
And this idea of no meaning no is something that kind of that was, became like a slogan, I think in the late 80s, trying to teach people about intimate partner violence and sexual
Mhm,
violence, and just
mhm.
try to help girls, that girls had to be taught to say no, and that boys need to learn in this heterosexual context that, intimate partner violence, that if a boy wants to and you do not, you say no,
Mhm.
and we learn the danger in that.
Yes,
But we do not learn the danger, or do not learn that it's important to say no
in other aspects.
any
Yeah.
other aspects, And so it really does help me to think through this idea of, that that there were so many times when girls and women are taught like how to avoid sexual assault by walking with your keys between your fingers like Wolverine. You know what I mean? That we learn to defend ourselves in this way when there are lots of other threats that are much more subtle and more likely to happen to us
Mhm.
than this attack from a stranger. It's really attack from the culture itself. And
Yes.
recognizing the messages that you're getting on television and decoding those,
Yes.
recognizing these messages
Yes.
that are constantly saying things about your, unworthiness. And so I was asking earlier about the values, and the interview that I saw you with Sheen Magazine a couple of days ago. I think it was last week. You're talking with Sheen Magazine about the new role in Punky Brewster reboot. So hooray,
Mhm.
hooray, exciting! And you mentioned then at that time that um, you would not take any more roles on police shows. And if you could talk a little bit about that, a bit about like what made you make that decision.
So I wrote an op-ed piece for entertainmentweekly.com that came out last week. So if any of the listeners want to,
I'll put
dive
a link
in
to
a
it.
little bit more. Oh,
I'll
thank you
put a
so
link.
much. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'll put
So
a link to
I
anything you want. So I got your website, Instagram,
Oh, okay.
IMDb, I will put
Oh
all
my
that in
God.
there. But tell me
Okay,
about the
perfect.
ET article. So yes.
So you know, 2020 was a tough year, and I can't even say why it was so tough because there are so many things competing for the number one spot.
Oh yeah. It was
But
a hard year for the Blacks.
it was tough.
Was a hard
It
year for the Blacks.
like this it's so hard to articulate it. Like obviously there is a
Let me try.
terrible virus.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me try. We had a
Okay.
global pandemic
Mhm.
that changed absolutely everything and
Mhm.
absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
We had a young man who was just minding his own business, trying to jog in a community adjacent to his or whatever, who was murdered by two white men, one of whom was a cop. We have Breonna Taylor, who was also murdered by police. We have George Floyd, also murdered by police. I'm not gonna even try to say all the names
You
because it's
can't.
not possible to do so. I
You
don't
can't.
have that list in front of me, but it is long and violent, and every single time
Mhm.
it it does something to me. It
Mhm.
sends a message to every Black person in this country, I think, about what
Mhm.
the value of our lives and our experiences are. And it
Yes.
is, and to do this on top of the global pandemic,
Yes.
which is like these two competing viruses, right?
Yes.
The virus of white supremacy, or as Zadie Smith
Yes.
in her book wrote in Intimation, she says contempt is the virus,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
it's white supremacy, it's contempt, and then
Mhm.
it's the actual virus and the uncertainty of this medical. And so it just felt like we were caught between two pandemics.
That's exactly what I really struggled with was feeling so impotent, wanting to do what can I do? What can I do? Um, it was really scary to go out to the marches, and I loved that there were marches and that there were these protests.
Yes.
And I hated the fact that every single person had to like have this really, scary conversation with themselves. Am I going to put myself at risk to stand up for my community and go out there and show support and solidarity? Which is more important? It would depend on the day. we went to marches here in Los Angeles. My partner is immune compromised, and so it would just and they came too. Like we went out there and we were masked up, but there was just no easy decision to make, and that made you feel even more without power.
Yes.
And so I write in the article how we're sharing the hashtags. We're donating to the political candidates that we think are going to bring about change. We're donating to GoFundMe's. We are trying to get the word out. We're sharing books. We're sharing information with each other. We're doing as that is like the most work that I felt like I could do
Yes.
was with my fingers and with
Yes.
a device in my hands.
Right.
And all the while kind of acting like everything is still normal, like still doing auditions. I don't know when they're going to be filmed, but I'm going to send this audition. It's this need for people to try and keep things as if they are normal and maintain the status quo while everything is literally falling apart around us. And so I had this audition, and it was for what I'm sure will be a really ridiculous show, but it seemed fun. I was like, yeah, I'll go in for this. This could be really fun. And I realized what a disconnect it was for me to be going in, not going in, self-taping and here in my house, just taping this audition with my partner for this police officer. I go in for police officers all the time. That's like my fantasy world. It was almost like my career. And in some aspects, being an actor in television is a fantasy. You're not, it's not real. You're portraying a narrative, a story. But then how do I sit with this idea of putting myself on a television show to play a cop and this reality where I'm trying to educate myself about abolition, defunding the police, completely getting rid of our criminal justice system so we can put something else in its place that is not so biased against people of color and Black people specifically. Like, there is no I can't speak for all artists, but I can't separate the stuff that I am a part of from who I am in my regular life. And I think at some point in my career, I had a realization that I am not I'm not the work that I do. I have to have value outside of this work that I do. Who am I if I don't have this job anymore? Who am I if I never get cast? Who am I just in the bed at night about to fall asleep? Who knows if I'm gonna wake up tomorrow because nobody's day is promised ever? Who am I outside of that? And Hollywood is built up so that we really put, all these people on a pedestal, and we fantasize about how amazing and great they are, and it takes away their humanity. And how do we infuse our own humanity in ourselves again in this specific line of work? Like, it's just a lot of questions, and I don't have all the answers to the questions. I'm good at asking questions, not great at answering them. But I knew, and I said to Claire at the time, I was filming the audition, and I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And they
Mhm.
didn't even hesitate. They were like, maybe you shouldn't. Like, it was not, it was nothing. And so I just kind of made the decision there. I had already sent this tape in, and I was like, it's fine. I'm not going to get it anyway. But how do I move forward with intention? Like, how do I feel empowered? And this article came out, and I cannot tell you how much like hate mail and hate comments that I've received from all these people, which is to be expected. And honestly, the stakes for me are very low. I know that there are activists out there who are doing really big things, who are getting death threats all the time. So I don't want to put myself in that camp, but I do want to acknowledge that it is not easy to to how do I say this? To be yourself unapologetically, um, and always get rewarded for it. I feel reward from my community and the people that are close to me, but it is so wild to be in this place right now that we are in today, in this culture, in this country, in this world, and have people making fun of you for saying, I am an abolitionist, knowing that hundreds of years ago, people were also making fun of the people who were trying to abolish slavery. And they were just like, that is LOL, LOL. Hysterical. It's never going to happen. What are you thinking? Like, what are you seriously mentally ill to actually think that could be? People were saying that. Yeah, and here we are again today, repeating the same thing. And all these people being like, defund the police. It is. It absolutely is. Yes. I do not want to be on the wrong fucking side of history. I don't give a shit if you like it. Because here's the thing. I guess that the risk is that, okay, maybe I'll never work again. 15 years ago, that might have been something that was terrifying to me. I do not fucking care. I will always be smart and talented and be able to take care of myself. I don't have to have Hollywood to do that. I love it. I love acting, and I would be really bummed if like I wasn't able to do it.
You're good at it. Let's just add that. You're also good at it. So it's not like you're like, oh, she all right. No. You're good at it.
But we have to figure out what our value is outside of the thing that capitalism tells us is our value. That's right. And that's a struggle, and it's not easy. You know, I recognize that it's not easy for everybody to do that. It hasn't been easy for me to do it, but I don't think that we can ever fully show up for each other if we are always putting things like money and fame and attention as a priority in our lives. Yes. Like I still want to be the same Jasika, whether Instagram exists or not.
Yes, exactly. And when you say that, you know, how rare it is to be rewarded and also be your whole entire self, that becomes less important once you realize that you are the source. Right. And that you don't need to have this, like, you know what I mean? Like you're not constantly because I think in your line of work, you audition. In work, you put yourself on the line. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to accept criticism and rejection and all of these things that happen that may or may not be fair and most likely are not fair. And you have to deal with that with work. Right. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to who you are and who you are as a whole person beyond a job, beyond a task, beyond a role, that's who you will always be. That's why it's so important to do the work that feeds your soul. Right. And this is not to say that people don't need to have jobs or whatever. You know, we live in capitalism. But this idea that who you are is not going to change and should not change with the whims of what other people think. I mean, I feel like that's such a recipe for unhappiness. It feels like such a recipe for this constant chasing of affirmation from people who really have no criteria with which to judge you anyway, you know? And so it becomes so important to honor yourself and to remember, as a friend reminds me, is that you belong to yourself first. We belong to ourselves first. That's Jill Bakemore. And that's what she's amazing. And she's wonderful. I'm not going to share her IG handle. I don't think she'd like that, but she's amazing. But yeah, and this is why I believe creative liberation is a practice. Because it's like yoga. You do it again and again and again. It's not like, and I know they do have these things, which I kind of find weird. Competitive yoga is a thing.
Seems like it defeats the purpose, but you know what? To each their own.
Yeah. My life is not competitive yoga. I'm not competitive.
I didn't either.
I don't want that. I don't like it. I want to ask about your painting because I saw you did a painting of Jackie's book, Embodied.
Yes.
Did you know that I'm in the book? There's 2 patterns in that Embodied book.
Wait! Oh my gosh! Yes, you were in the. Oh my gosh! I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. Okay. Yes, I absolutely. That's you, and that's why. Did she just do a podcast with you recently or something?
I did a lot. We did a discussion. So she and I had a conversation, and she announced it on her newsletter, and people came to that conversation, and did that like last week.
This
And
is so full circle for me because it was so weird that like we were in touch with each other and I was gonna be doing this thing. And then she was like posting all this stuff about you and just saying really nice things about you. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to this woman. She's clearly like super, super smart and very talented. And she just got me really hyped up. And now I'm realizing that, yes, you are totally in that book. So they sent me the book to review it. And I did. I'm in a knitting hiatus right now in my life. Which I won't go into. But it was so funny. I got the book and I was like, all right, I hope that I'm inspired to knit something. And I looked all through it and I was like, I'm actually just inspired to paint everything. Like the book is so pretty. The colors are so stunning. All the plants that are in it. It's just real, like pleasant, good, relaxed, chill vibes. So yeah, it was a delight to paint her. Although I told her, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think I did you justice in terms of like how pretty you are because I'm just getting into watercolors. But
I thought you did a good job. But I was going through your page. I was like, oh, it's Jackie, it's the book. I mean, I knew what it was right away. So
yay! Oh, that makes me so happy.
You know exactly. And then I was like, where's mine? I don't see my picture. Where's my picture coming? I don't want to.
Hold on, let me write it down on my list. I don't want to send her
no unsolicited advice, but I want to see where my painting at.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a TikTok where we're like doing a scene from the Titanic, and I'm Jack, and I'm like, "Can I paint you?" And you got to be like, "Yeah,
I'm ready,"
and get some velvet.
I'm ready. Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. That was so great. It was really beautiful, and it just shows me how you are living a life of creative liberation, in my opinion. And this is one of the reasons that I was so happy to talk to you, because you are doing this and you are putting it out there and you are being your whole self. You are not apologizing and you are helping people in so doing that to learn to be free within themselves. That is what I receive when I visit your page and when I see you, do talks and see you on lives and seeing you do the things that you do. I really do appreciate that about you. And it is rare. It is quite rare because there's a lot of folks who don't want to risk the benefits that come with being approved of by you know what I'm saying? It's some people need that, and that's fine. But it's also not you. It's not you. It's not who you are. It's not what you do. It's not me. It's not what I do. And I just really feel like it's important to be who you are without fear. And a lot of people are working on that, and
self-included.
And also me. And so I love that. And I'm so sad to wrap this up because I have like 90,000 more questions that I did not ask. And so I'm not going to be able to get to all the stuff I had about, the projector sewing. Still confused.
Oh my God.
Yep. It's confused. And what would make you sew something for someone? What makes someone make worthy? Still.
Oh my gosh. See? I mean, I have answers though. Like,
okay. I want to know what makes someone make worthy.
Okay. So if I love you a lot, you're already in the category of, yes, I will consider making for you.
Okay.
However, if you know exactly what you want, that makes me so happy. Like I won't even hesitate. So when my partner Claire sees something online maybe that they like and they're really excited and they're like, oh my God, could you make this? Like I'm over the moon. But most recently, my dad has joined this group of people. So I don't know who taught him about Pinterest. It was not me.
Oh dear.
It might be one of these ladies he's dating. Okay. But somebody told him not only how to save things to Pinterest, but how to send me the pins so I can see what it is that he likes. So a couple of years ago, he sends me these pins and he's like, do you think you can make these shirts? Because I want to be clear. I'd already told my dad, if you see stuff he likes, I can make you stuff. So he knew he wouldn't have asked me if it wasn't cool. Right. But anyway, he sent me these photos of these like fitted button down shirts that had these wild, bold floral prints on them. And I was like, can I make them? Is that a challenge? And so, I made him these shirts. And then another year, he sent me a pin of a wooden cutting board that had this really beautiful ornate design carved into it.
Mhm.
He was like, can you make this? And I was like, I don't know. We're about to find out. Let's go. And I made it for him. This man keeps this butcher block in his car just so he can take it out to show people when he goes to visit them. Like, I don't even know if he's actually ever cut anything on it because he likes it so much. So I would say in general, make-worthy people are the ones who are like so excited and so thankful for the time that you put into it. I'm about to flame my mom right now, but I made her a couple of dresses in the past. And her response has been lukewarm to mediocre. And here's what I will say. This is tricky. And this is the thing about the patriarchy and fitting into a specific beauty standard. So when I make stuff for my mom, I think she loves it, but she doesn't like her body. Because it is bigger than it has been in past times. And so all she can see is that she's unhappy with how she looks. And it is so hard because she's got decades of talking poorly to herself in her brain. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
And so my little old voice saying, Mom,
you're beautiful.
Girl, you know it doesn't matter what size you are. You've always been beautiful. Like, she's always been the most beautiful woman I've ever known because it's the first woman that I've ever known. And I feel like, lots of kids always think that their moms are the most beautiful people. She can't see past that to what I made her. And so I've learned that I just don't need to make her things because I don't think she's in a place where she can really receive a gift without going into some dark place.
Not yet. That's right.
Not yet. And you know what? I'm not giving up on her because I am constantly, sharing information with her and I don't know, trying to get her like on board with the like pro-fat movement. I say pro-fat, it's really like, trying to be against anti-fat, but really like pro anybody's body that is yours is a good one.
The Body is Not an Apology. I love that book.
This woman does not read, okay? Like, all she does is watch Hell's Kitchen and RuPaul's Drag Race, and it is so hard to get her.
It's
like,
it's on tape.
Know. All right, we'll see.
Does she like? You can tell us a podcast.
She don't listen to a podcast. This woman, but you know what? You're right. I just have to. If I'm with her, she lives in Florida, so if I'm with her, I do try to infuse our conversations with, progressive ideas about bodies and how the patriarchy has affected, our understanding of what is beautiful, blah, blah, blah. It's not blah, but,
it takes time. It does. And she will get there or not.
Or she won't.
And it's not your job. Right?
You're right.
It's not your job. Your job, you love her. Your job is you love her. That's it. You love. You love. You love. You accept to accept.
That's it. And I know we have to end this soon, but here's where the boundaries, talking about putting boundaries on social media and being so adamant about what I expect from people. Yeah. It is so easy to do it on social media and so much harder to do it in real life. So when people write to me and say, I'm trying to be like you and stick out boundaries too. And I'm like, girl, I am also trying to do that.
And I'm failing because I'm reading this note.
Absolutely. Honestly, yes. But what I want to do is be like, Mom, you don't get to talk to me about diets anymore. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about keto. I don't want to hear you use the word fat in a derogatory way. Like, that's what I want to say to her. And it's so, it's just really hard, especially when it's somebody who lives far away from you. Right. So the actual time that you have together feels so limited. And it's like,
yes. And you don't want to spend it fighting, right? You don't
Exactly. But I just have to get better at it. So that's the goal that I'm working on right now.
It's one of the practices. It's one of the many practices. And that's what we do. We keep practicing.
We keep challenging ourselves. We're trying to grow. We're trying to again, expand, be expansive, be broad and big and bold.
If you are on Patreon, you are seeing these amazing gestures of expansion that she is doing. They're really amazing. You could tell she was a dancer. So I'm just saying, because she's doing it now, and y'all are totally missing out. And her bangs are like now perfect. They have like, everything has gone back to like, her hair throughout the entire process has been like amazing. And if you don't have the Patreon, you're missing it. Because
y'all got to sign up for the Patreon if you really want to see the delight of this Lisa Turtle look.
I mean, it's really quite special. And I feel like the fact that she's even calling it, I know she means Lisa from Saved by the Bell, but I really feel like she's talking about me. So I'm really enjoying it.
That's right.
This has been like a great day for me.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa.
Jasika, what do you have going on next? Where can people find that? What's your next big thing? Do you have anything coming up later on for 2021 or things that you're excited about?
No. And here's what I've learned from this pandemic. That is okay.
Yes.
I would say prior to the pandemic, whenever you do an interview or whatever, you're promoting a project and they're always asking what is next because they want to make sure that it is beneficial for you and what you do and people can find you. And I remember always feeling so insecure, like if I didn't have anything that was coming up next. So I would make up stuff and I'd be like, well, I had a great audition last week. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, who knows?
That was spectacular because have you met me?
But now, after this pandemic, I can honestly say, I'm just trying to be alive and healthy. I want my family to be alive and healthy and doing well. That is really and truly, I have no idea what actual work I'm going to be doing next. And I don't even think it is as important to me as it used to be. I just want to have some good mental health situation. I want to feel inspired. I want to feel excited about waking up in the morning. And if an opportunity presents itself to me that is really wonderful, I will absolutely be sharing it on my social media handles. And then people can find me on Instagram. I am Jasika is trycurious.com. And then my website is www.jasikanicole.com, which is mostly a sewing blog. And don't worry about Twitter. That's just for work. And
that's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, don't go to that work account. That's not where it's
don't go to the work account. That's not really me. Okay.
Jasika hangs out. She don't hang out on Twitter. That's where work Jasika hangs out. If you want to go watch her do some work.
That's work Jasika. Yes, honestly.
Well, this has been so amazing. And I am hoping that, as time goes on, and maybe we can talk again. Because again,
I would love that.
Because I still have, like I said, unanswered questions in the notebook. I was like, I checked off like creative liberation. 1. All the rest. Nope.
But you know what? You were a lovely interviewer, and I felt like the conversation flowed and was so very organic. So congratulations to you.
Kudos to you. We did amazing because
we did it. Who
would expect anything else from you and me? Honestly, let me tell you something. I have already created the promotional materials for this episode. I've already done it.
Oh God. And it's coming out in June. Oh my God. Okay. You are on top of it.
I created them as soon as I got your email. I was like, oh, they're the photos. Boop, boop. Okay. We ready. I had not said one word to you. I'm like, this shit's gonna be fire. I was prepared and it was gonna be great.
Man, I'm so happy that I hopefully delivered on this. You did. Truly a delight.
You are wonderful, and thank you for being here with us today. This is amazing.
Thank you, Lisa. You are awesome. This was such a joy. I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate you valuing the voices of Black people, but also specifically Black women, Black femmes, giving them a platform to talk about the culture and the world and the art that we create. It's really, really cool.
And this is why we have you on for Juneteenth.
You've been listening to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you joining us this week and every week for stories that center Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. We invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon community with giving levels beginning at $5 a month. Your contributions help us bring the Stitch Please podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.